If you want to have clarity as to what you can do to improve the life situation you are in, read this book. This book is a brilliant introduction for anyone who has never delved into spirituality or philosophy, and I'm not surprised that it has sold millions of copies worldwide. Understanding and thinking about what this book talks about will improve your life manifold with regards to your work, your career, your relationships, all of it. Hello, good people of the internet. Welcome to another video in the Unlearning Playground Book Club. The book that we're reviewing in this video is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This is, I think, the highest selling spirituality book ever. No, of course not. That would have been the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, somewhere thereabouts. I think after those religious books, this is one of the highest selling spirituality books ever, I think. And rightly so. I think this delves into the topics of spirituality and philosophy, even for people who have never thought about it too much or meditated on it too much. They can also consume this book and get a lot of benefits out of it. I think this was my first book on the topic of spirituality, and I can safely say that this got introduced to me, in fact, from a friend who said this changed his life. I can say that too, because whatever I read from this book inspired a lot of different learnings and unlearnings for me and paved a path that takes me here today. So I think if I was to summarize this book, by the way, I would say that it's within this quote. He says, if you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. And I think he has done exactly that. That is the chief aim with which you can read this book, of getting the inside right. And one thing that I really love about this book is kind of along the lines of how I'm designing my new podcast episodes. This book has logical pauses after every few sections. So the point being that consume the content between these two logical pauses and then sit back, relax and meditate and think about what you just consumed. Very similar to how I'm designing the new podcast episodes. That's also something I love about it. So with that in mind, let's get into my chief learnings and unlearnings from this book. One of the chief takeaways I think you can have from this book is that it will help you interpret religions better. So you would find that in various sections of this book, Eckhart picks up quotes from the Bible or some of the teachings of the Buddha or from Islam or even from Hinduism for that matter, the Bhagavad Gita maybe. And he would interpret and put forward a translation of that quote in a way that helps you understand religion better and not in a polarizing manner along the lines of which usually you would see religious fanatics behave. So I think that is definitely one of the key takeaways. This book will help you interpret your religion better. The second key takeaway from this book is the watching the thinker concept. Now this is something I have used personally for myself too, and I've been giving it out in advices all over my podcast and also in my one-on-one sessions. The core idea being, what is the core of spirituality? It is just observing your own thoughts, realizing and understanding your own thoughts. So there is this watching the thinker concept in which he talks about stand back and observe your own thoughts. And in a way, I think Eckhart, the way he has explained it, really helps you realize that you're not supposed to take your thoughts so seriously always. You're not supposed to take them to be true always. You're supposed to watch them, observe them, and realize if they are biased at times, because all of us have biased thoughts at times. I personally love the way Eckhart explained all of it in his book. And I think one of the key takeaways was also that, see, if you are observing your thoughts, you suddenly realize, that you are not your thoughts. You can and also are separate from your thoughts. And this is something that can really help you, especially if you're someone who overthinks or if you're someone who is too attached to the whirlwind of thoughts flowing in your mind, in your conscious attention all over the time. It really helps to understand that you are separate from your thoughts. So you can really be separate from that very sticky identity that forms around your thoughts. I think I love this part about this book. The third key takeaway from this book is the whole idea of the pain body. Now, what he calls the pain body is nothing but your victim identity, meaning the identity that forms around all the traumas and the sufferings and the pain you've been through in your life. And he uses the term pain body to denote an identity that forms out of everything that happened. Now, the way he has explained it in the book, Eckhart has done a brilliant job of talking you through how this pain body gets activated, how this pain body can almost overshadow your actual true self in not just situations in which you're triggered, but maybe throughout your conscious life. And it's also not very uncommon for people to feel that I cannot act any other way. This is who I am. I had to be angry at that moment. I had to cry. I had to do all of it, all of what I did because I was triggered and there could be no other way. And in Eckhart's own words, he says, you can, your pain body cannot. So learn to differentiate yourself from your pain body, from your victim identity, and realize that your pain body, your victim identity, your inner child is just one aspect of your entire identity, of your entire self. And the moment you realize that, you also get to understand that there is some level of responsibility, some level of free will that you can now start to exercise. I think Eckhart has done a brilliant job of explaining this in this book, and you can pick this book up just for this section itself. It's very well done. Before we go ahead, I have some requests to make of you. If by the end of this video you're moved enough and you want to read this book, please check out the book from the link that will be appearing in the description below. It's an Amazon affiliate link, which means the revenue generated if you buy the book via that link helps to support this channel. So play your part. Let's get into the video now. And also subscribe the channel if you haven't already. The fourth key takeaway of this book is in fact when he explains the title, The Power of Now. What does it mean to be in the now? What does it mean to be in the present moment? Because if you think about it, isn't it just a tautology? I mean, the present moment is all there is. The now is all there ever is. But he explains very well what it means to actually be in the now. Because if you think about it, there are so many times in our lives where we are either unnecessarily being anxious about the future or unnecessarily being depressed about the past. And if you think about it, even all of that depression and that anxiety is happening in the present moment. But we get so attached to our identities in the future or in the past that we no longer seem to get a hold of what needs to be done, what action needs to be taken in the present moment. And that is the power of now. When you bring yourself back to the present moment, that does not mean do not plan for the future. That does not mean do not learn from what happened in the past. But all that means is that everything that you're thinking about the past, about the future, is a story happening here. And it's a story happening in the present moment. So think about all of these things, but get yourself back to the present and act in the present moment. There is also something to be said about setting a goal in the future and working towards it. It's normal for people to start to consider when they turn spiritual that this is somehow wrong. I don't think that is wrong. And even Eckhart gives the same message that it's not wrong to set a goal in the future. You can have a future to look forward to. That's normal. That's perfectly okay. But what's problematic is when you set an identity that is attached to that future. Meaning that you start to think that you will be happy, you will be fulfilled, you will be enlightened in that future. And therefore realize that you're playing that waiting game, and what gets attached to your identity in the present moment is that waiting game. And we get so attached to that waiting game that that waiting game is all we play throughout our life. So even if that future arises, the self that reaches that future is too attached to the waiting game. And therefore it is now attached to some other waiting game, to some other waiting game. And the waiting game never ends. This is the power of now. And I think Eckhart does a brilliant job of explaining all of this in his book. And this is also one of the core sections. So you must read the book for it. The fifth key takeaway from this book that I would want to talk about is one of my absolute favorite parts of this book, which is the part which he calls from addictive to enlightened relationships. He describes very beautifully how it's not uncommon for people to think of their relationships, romantic, personal, professional, all of those relationships, to be a means to an end and to be a means to satisfy their needs. Now, what happens very quickly or after a period of time is that your partner or the other person in your relationship is not able to satisfy that need that you chose that partner for. And before you know it, you turn toxic. Before you know it, you start to project that need again outwards. and you even maybe punish that person in ways that you would not imagine yourself doing. And I'm not just talking about physical punishment. It's more about, it's usually manifested in the form of a mental torture. And that is the state of a lot of our relationships, especially after a good few number of years. And Eckhart does a brilliant job of explaining how you can change and modify your relationships, how you have to change the stance which you take towards your relationship from this addictive model of seeing your relationship as a means to satisfy your needs. He says you need to move away from that. You need to understand that your relationships are not here to fulfill your desires or make you happy or feel fulfilled, but rather it's a means to make you conscious. It's a means to make you conscious of your own unawareness, your own ignorance, your own unconsciousness, and also the unconsciousness, the ignorance, the unawareness of some other person, so that you can make space for it in your life. Isn't that what all of human enterprise is all about? All of human life is about relationships, and this is a beautiful way to approach your relationships, where you make space for your own unawareness and make space for your partner's unawareness too. I think if you digest this part from this book, it'll help you exceedingly improve all of your relationships, romantic, personal, professional, all of them. Well, okay then. That's about it for today's video. I hope you liked, you found value in what I talked about regarding this book. I think having said all of what I said, the foremost thing that I think I love about this book is the fact that it throws directly at you how rarely you are at peace and at ease with life. And this is something that is quite central to my own work too, because I think the way human beings are living in this day and age in 2023 is quite messed up, and it's also getting way too complicated than it needs to be. And I think even if one voice in a million is saying that there is a better way of going about it, you owe it to yourself to pay heed to such a voice. I think this book is one of those voices. I think my podcast and my YouTube channel is also one of those voices. So make sure you check out more of my book reviews. Make sure you check out more of my content. And I'll see you in the playground the next time. Until next time, peace out.